Chapter 16. Harmony in Discord. 1 year could change everything. Or nothing at all. Or perhaps most truthfully, everything and nothing simultaneously. The members of C7 stood backstage at Seoul Olympic Stadium as the thunderous cheers of 50,000 fans echoed through the floor beneath their feet. The anniversary concert, celebrating 1 year since the revelation sold out in just 3 minutes, was completely sold out. Jake stared at his reflection in the dressing room mirror, his eyes swirling with memories, some sweet as summer peaches, others bitter as unripe persimmons. "Are you having one of your dramatic internal monologues again?" Silas teased, adjusting his silver jacket. "I'm reflecting on the profound journey of self-discovery this past year has." "Yep, definitely monologuing," Julian interrupted, throwing a towel at Jake's head. The towel landed with a soft thump, and Jake's perfectly styled hair remained infuriatingly intact. Vic burst into the room, his face flushed with excitement. "You won't believe who just arrived." Sera brought her entire family, even her grandmother, who said idols were noise pollution. The room erupted in laughter, breaking the momentary tension. Jon, meticulously arranging snacks on a platter, glanced up. "Should I prepare more kimbap? You know how Sol gets when she's hungry." "Insufferable," they all finished in unison, having heard this observation countless times over the past year. Jon smiled sheepishly. "Well, she's been working on that. Just like I've been working on my jokes." He paused dramatically. "You could say we've both been Kimchi-ng out of our bad habits." The room fell silent. Then Silas snorted. Vic giggled. Julian clutched his stomach. Within seconds, the entire dressing room was howling with laughter. "Did Jon just make a food pun that was funny?" James gasped between laughs. "Mark the date in the history books," Jake declared, wiping tears from his eyes. A throat cleared from the doorway. They all turned to see manager Kando standing with Sol, whose face was changed by a reluctant smile. "I can't believe I'm dating someone who thinks Kimchi-ng is a verb," she said. Jon's face lit brighter than the stadium lights. "But you're laughing." "I most certainly am not," she insisted, even as her shoulders shook with suppressed giggles. The concert's first half was a spectacular showcase of C7's greatest hits. Fans had anticipated the special segment, The Harmony in Discord, for months. Director Blake initially rejected the concept of 7 separate performances, each incorporating the members' significant others in some way. "Too messy, too personal, too unpredictable," he protested. Yet here they were, about to prove that sometimes the most beautiful harmonies arise from seeming discord. Jake and Tina took the stage first, performing an evolved version of their viral duet. Where last year's choreography focused on finding connection, this year's tells the story of maintaining it through storms and sunshine. Holographic rain fell around them, then transformed into sunlight, the weather following their emotions exactly as they moved through the story of their year together. "They make it look so easy," Sera whispered from the side stage, watching with eyes that sparkled with unshed tears. Vic squeezed her hand. "It wasn't, though. Remember when they almost broke up over that misunderstanding with the mystery texter?" The memory surfaced with painful clarity, Jake looking devastated as Tina shouted, "How could you believe I would say those things about you?" while holding up a phone with fake messages. Jealous backup dancers, who had nearly succeeded in destroying several relationships before being exposed, had been behind it all. "Some people really can't stand seeing others happy," Sera remarked. "But true love overcomes all obstacles," Vic declared in his most dramatic voice, striking a pose worthy of the cover of a romance novel. Sera playfully pushed his shoulder. "You've been saying that line for a year now." "And I've been right for a year now," he replied with a wink. Silas and MiRe's segment began with them seated back-to-back at pianos, playing a duet that started as 2 separate melodies, before gradually weaving into one harmonious piece. Their matching musical note pendants gleamed under the spotlight as their fingers moved across the keys. "They've come so far," manager Kando observed, dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. Despite his initial resistance to the dating scandal, he had become the couple's biggest supporter, often smuggling couples out for secret dates when schedules became too hectic. "Remember when MiRe couldn't even look at Silas without blushing?" Julian laughed. The memory was vivid. Young MiRe dropping her production notes everywhere when idol producer Silas helped her organize them after their heated encounter at the auction house, her cheeks as red as her vintage band t-shirt. "Social status differences," manager Kando nodded sagely. She was just an indie producer then, thinking she wasn't sophisticated enough for a mainstream idol producer from C7 who could outbid her vintage equipment. "And now their song is nominated for Song of the Year," Hope added proudly. The stage was transformed into a kindergarten classroom for Julian and Hope's performance. Their children's dance program had evolved into a nationally broadcast show, and tonight they invited 12 of their young students to perform alongside them. The audience cooed and awed in unison as the children executed the surprisingly complex choreography flawlessly. "My heart can't take this much cuteness," James clutched his chest dramatically. "Strategic career move," Jon observed. "No critic can give negative reviews to children without looking like a monster." "Or maybe," Muse suggested gently, "they simply found joy in teaching?" Muse's presence backstage was still a source of whispered gossip. If rumors were to be believed, the kindergarten teacher had somehow captured the heart of C7's most eligible bachelor, potentially his twin brother. The truth was simpler and more complicated than the tabloids believed. 6 months ago, in a private room at a cozy restaurant, James said seriously, sitting beside Muse across from Evan, "I think we should clarify our situation. The three-person bonsai is confusing people." Evan had agreed, referring to the miniature tree that had become the subject of frenzied fan theories after appearing in background photos. Muse had taken both of their hands then. "I care deeply for James," she had said. "And Evan is his brother and my friend. Why does the world need more explanation than that?" "Because the world loves complicated stories more than simple truths," James had replied sadly. The truth was that Evan had stepped back, supporting their relationship while maintaining a friendship with Muse that confused outsiders but worked perfectly for them. Now, as James prepared for his solo performance, his hand clutched the small wooden puzzle box Muse had given him on their third date. "To remind you that sometimes solutions require patience," she had said. "Nervous?" Evan appeared beside his twin, identical except for the small scar above Evan's eyebrows, which was the only way fans could reliably tell them apart. "Terrified," James admitted. "What if I forget the lyrics?" "Then I'll jump in and pretend we planned a twin switch all along," Evan grinned. Muse joined them, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from James's jacket. "Just remember why you're singing this song." James nodded, stepping toward the stage. "Wait," Evan called, pulling something from his pocket, a small folded paper star, like those from James's confession a year ago. "For luck." James's performance was a ballad, explicitly written for Muse. It described how he had hidden behind facades, until she taught him to be honest. As he sang, the background screens displayed the rotating constellations of truths he had revealed to her that night in the classroom. In the front row, elderly fans dabbed at their eyes alongside teenage girls. Even the most skeptical music critics found themselves swallowing suspicious lumps in their throats. When Vic took the stage next, he brought Sera with him, not to perform but to sit on a bench. At the same time, he delivered a spoken-word piece about how an ordinary literature professor had taught a fame-obsessed idol the meaning of intimacy. Despite her initial reluctance to be in the spotlight, Sera sat quietly as Vic described how she had refused to be impressed by his celebrity status, making him work twice as hard for her attention. She made me leave my crown at the door, he concluded, so I could finally see myself. The audience cheered as Sera, overwhelmed with emotion, broke protocol to embrace him at the center stage. For his performance, Jon had created an elaborate cooking show set on stage. As he prepared a traditional dish he had first cooked for Seoul's family when meeting them, he told the story of their relationship through food metaphors. Like kimchi, love needs time to ferment properly, he explained, rapidly chopping vegetables. Rush it, and the flavor remains underdeveloped. Sol, seated at a small table on stage, rolled her eyes, but could not hide her smile as Jon presented her with the finished dish at the end of his performance. "Is it to your standards?" he asked, his voice laced with exaggerated nervousness. She took a deliberate bite, chewed thoughtfully, then pronounced with mock seriousness, "It's adequate." The audience roared with laughter, knowing from a variety show appearances that adequate was Seoul's highest form of praise. All 7 members returned to the stage, alongside their partners for the final number. Where last year's performances had been carefully segregated to prevent scrutiny, tonight they performed together, idols and non-idols alike, in a choreographed celebration of how far they had come. Even Muse, who had refused to dance publicly, joined in, and each couple created a shape representing their journey. As the final notes faded, Director Blake walked onto the stage, an unprecedented event that caused gasps throughout the stadium. He adjusted the microphone, his expression unreadable behind dark sunglasses. "1 year ago," he began gravely, "I thought these relationships would destroy what we had built." The stadium held its breath. "I have never been happier to be proven completely wrong." Wild cheers erupted as he removed his sunglasses in his signature dramatic fashion. "And now," he continued once the noise had subsided, "I am announcing a company-wide 2-week break, effective immediately." The members exchanged confused glances. "I suggest," he added with the barest hint of a smile, "you all use this time wisely. Perhaps some couple of vacations might be in order." 14 faces simultaneously realized that this was not just a break, it was a blessing, a permission. Did Director Blake just become a hopeless romantic? Jake whispered to Tina. More importantly, Silas added, did he just willingly suggest losing 2 weeks of profit? Maybe, James said thoughtfully, his arm around Muse's shoulders. He finally understood that some harmonies can only be created through moments of discord. Jon nodded sagely. Or, as I always say about the perfect bibimbap. Please, no more food metaphors, they groaned in unison. The 14 stood together on stage, their laughter blending into perfect harmony as the audience rose to thunderous applause. The brilliant concert lights illuminated their silhouettes as the ballad version of C7's debut song filled the stadium. Back in his office later that night, Director Blake gazed at a framed photo of a woman on his desk. You were right, he said softly to the picture. Sometimes the heart knows better than the contract. Every ending, after all, is just another beginning. The end.